Thank you very, very much for being here today. This is a very special week around the world. When I was privileged to lead the U.S. delegation in 2000 to Dakar, where the world community, 170 countries, pledged to the 6 Education for All goals that included universal basic education, free, universal, quality basic education by 2015. The question was, would everybody just go home and say we had a nice declaration, or was the world going to mobilize to do something about it, to make sure that this promise that was made in Dakar and then again in that September in the Millennium Development Goal, was it going to be just another promise, or was there going to be a global mobilization? And so there were 2 things you really needed to make something happen. One is that you needed some kind of financing structure so that there was a way for the global community to actually keep its promise. There was a way that developing countries could come and say, we've stepped up to the plate, we've done what we're supposed to do, now we want the global community to fulfill its promises. So one of the things that came out of that was the creation of the Education for All Fast Track Initiative, and I'm very proud that one of the architects of that, Ruth Kagia from the World Bank, is here with us today. But the second thing that Ruth or anybody would tell you is that you can even have a great financing structure, but if there's no political pressure on the people who are resisting, or there's no wind at the back of the people who want to do the good things, nothing will happen again. And so, thus came the idea that the Global Campaign for Education, a campaign that had chapters in 80, 90, 100 countries around the world, the idea that there would be a particular week every year where, whether you were in India or Brazil, anywhere in the world, that young people would be that point of pressure, that young people would be the wind behind the back of those wanting to do good things and the pressure on those who were resistant or complacent. And what a beautiful idea that on this week, young people are joining hands across the globe, not on behalf of their own special interest, not on behalf of student loans for themselves, but on behalf of the children like them who are out of school or do not have a quality education. And this year, the theme was very much to join hands and stress that education is a human right. Now, in 2002, a woman named Angelema came to me and said, it's a little embarrassing that there is not an organized chapter in the United States. It doesn't look very good for the rest of the world. And so many of us got together and joined our efforts so that we would have a U.S. chapter of the Global Campaign for Education. And today I'm happy to say that we know that somewhere between maybe 1,000 to 2,000 schools in at least 40 states this week are participating in some way to pressure their communities, to pressure their members of Congress to care about universal education. Now, we are again very privileged today because while I am just merely the U.S. chair of the Global Campaign for Education, the global chair of all is this man to my left, Kailash. And Kailash plays a very important role in my life, too, because when I was at the White House, Kailash was the first person who ever showed me the power of young people advocating for other young people. There was a global march, and they said, is there any way you could come by? And of course, like you are in the White House, you fit something in barely to your schedule. Well, I had no idea what I was about to see. The young people from around the world who'd been child laborers, who were here in the United States truly on a global march. And so he has been not only perhaps the singular voice the chairman of the Global Campaign for Education, but he has been one of the true inspirations who really drew the connection that it wasn't good enough just to end child labor. You had to have quality education in exchange. And I really thank Sudhanshu and Beth here in the United States who work with Kailash, because one of the things we did this year at the Global Campaign for Education is we took the PBS documentary, Back to School, which shows 7 young children, 5 of them in poor developing countries, what their lives are like in education. And we partnered with them, and that is being sent out to over 1,000 schools. Because what we realized is you can give all the numbers, and you'll hear all the numbers today. We know those numbers. 80 million children out of school, probably 200 or 300 million additional children out of secondary school, hundreds of millions of more poor quality education, about the same number of children out of school in Africa as we have in school in the United States, and half of girls in Africa not even graduating from primary education. We know that, but sometimes it doesn't come real when you can't see the people, the faces. So the one thing that we tried to do with this working with PBS was to send this back to school documentary. But the Global March is always one step better. They say a documentary is nice, but we're actually going to bring those children here. We're going to bring those children to the halls of Congress, both working with us on bringing U.S. children, and I should say that many groups, from NetAid, Global Kids, CARE, have brought 50, 60 young people who have had over 60, 70 meetings on the Hill already. And this is one more step, which is that the Global March again is bringing 4 incredibly brave young children here. You don't have to watch them on a documentary. They're right here. And they're going to tell their stories. And I will tell you that to those of you here, these are stories that will affect and move many of the people here to do great things and great change. So I really welcome all of you for being here as part of Global Campaign for Education Week. I believe for joining hands for education as a human right. I believe education is foundational. I don't see how whether you believe in microcredit, how can people sign their documents or do the math if they have no education, if you believe in empowering women. But if you believe that this is important for winning hearts and minds around the world, or if you just believe that we're all God's children and education is part of the basic dignity of being a person, then you have to be all out for universal quality education. Not just getting kids in school, but for free and quality and learning. And it's not education for all if you don't look at and make sure we're getting the children, the worst circumstances, the orphans, the vulnerable children, the children with disability, the ones in conflict, and the brave children who've come out of child labor. And the last thing I'll say that's great about education, and you'll see this today, sometimes when you talk about how hard life is in developing countries, people feel kind of sorry for the children they're hearing. They feel like they're poor children. Can they give them $1 just so that they can have some food for a day? Well, what education reminds you is that's not what it's about. This is about young people with the same dreams and aspirations as the young people, as our children. The same young children who education can make the difference between a cycle of poverty and starting a cycle of opportunity for themselves, their family, and their country. And when you see these children, you will see children who are empowered, who are out to do great things. And you have to ask yourself how we allow an additional 80 million children to not have the opportunity that they have and only have because of the great work that Kailash and other people have done. So thank you very much for being here.